This is Best Ball Whenever. Another great guest today, Tom Strachan, joining me from across the pond in Gateshead, England, which I was not familiar with. Tom was just telling me that it's a 3 or 4 hour train ride from London. Of course, being United States built, I don't know England all that well, so really excited to have Tom on. I do know Tom. Tom does a lot of great content, of course, at the FF Fantasy Football Sanctuary. You can, if you want to link to that, it is in the description of this video. Of course, go follow Tom on Twitter at NFL Tstrack. Tom, really excited for you joining me today at what is 3 o'clock my time, 9 o'clock for you. I know you have a beer, so usually I'm the only one drinking on my shows. Today it's the opposite. Tom's gonna have a beer while I'm drinking some water here. Tom, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, doing great. I mean, it's just this time of year, I just love it. And I keep saying it on every show I'm on. It's like there's so much best ball content on there. If I'm not live, or you're not live, or Bindles isn't live, or Pete's not live, or Carane's not live, then you're really struggling because there's always a draft stream to be watched. There is always content to be read. And I mean, I'm not saying I like this time more than the actual season, but it's pretty close.
It's pretty damn fun, and it only gets, I feel like it gets more and more fun as we get closer to the season. Like, it's fun right now for us sickos who are drafting in May, but like by the time August comes around, it's like the rest of the world is getting ready, getting pumped up for NFL season. Do you find the same thing? Does it get more and more exciting for you, or do you love this like beginning time the most?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is the kind of time where it's like you get to know the best ballroom. You get to know, okay, well, I can do this. I should be doing that. What is it that I start really wanting to care about? August just feels like completely crazy to me because if it's not the video content we've got over on the Fantasy Sanctuary, then it's the writing I'm doing for Fantasy Pros. And it's just like, it's a complete blur. And it's also one of the few times a year where my day job is pretty busy.
Okay.
So come August, it will be chaos. And I possibly don't pause to enjoy it quite as much as I should. But yeah, this time of year where we're pre-training camp, I just really enjoy.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun time of the year. It's kind of the beauty of NFL more than any other sport. It's like there is no off season really. Like it really, like season ends. I mean, Underdog immediately releases multiple contests. We're just going immediately, and like every like part of the year is its own little section. Yeah, no part of the year quite as great as the actual season for me, but the whole season is damn fun. For you, I mean, we were talking before the stream. You can't play Underdog where you are, but you get your drafts in just by doing these shows, right? You end up probably doing 150 drafts just as a guest, don't you?
I mean, it's definitely part of the reason why I wanted to do an underdog show on our channel was that I needed to get back in the game. 2 years ago, Underdog reached out and flew me out to America, and I went and hung out of their head office, and it was like, without doubt, one of the coolest weeks of my
Yeah.
life. And that was the first time I ever got to draft on there. But I mean, I've been obsessed with Underdog's data ever since they first came out because they just free it up to anyone who wants it. And that's what it should be. It should be about learning and helping your audience get better. You know, some of these sites that still hold on to it, why are you holding on to it? What are you possibly gaining from people not knowing? The rake is the rake. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, me and Tyler are definitely going to do our best to hit as many drafts as possible between now and September, but it might be a couple short of your 150 live streams.
150, yeah, 150 live streams is a tall task. I'm gonna get there though. It's easier for me because I can do it whenever I want, and I don't have to schedule with anybody else because I'm in Minnesota. We can play Underdog, thankfully here. But yeah, you'll get a number in, and we'll get one or two in tonight. Hopefully Tom. We'll see if Tom can keep his eyes open for the second one. I know you have kids also, right? So you probably do you have young kids or just or are they a bit older now?
Yeah, I got a 6 and an 8-year-old. So last night, by the time me and Tyler finished streaming, I think it was 12:30 our time. So quick 6 hour sleep and then up to do the school run.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah. So if Tom can keep his eyes open, then we'll do a couple drafts. I'll be doing a couple drafts either way. Hopefully Tom will join us for both, but we can play that by ear after getting the first one out of the way. Do you have any before we get started, any overarching thoughts on like the schedule came out last week? Do you have any like teams that you are, focusing on more that the schedule came out? Any big thoughts on changes in your strategy since the NFL schedule came out?
Not too much. I think, there's little things within the schedule where you look at a team and go, okay, well, actually, they have a really nice 3 game streak, like Atlanta, at Las Vegas, home to the Giants, at Washington. None of those teams scare me at all. And I already felt bullish on Drake London. But for me, it's just that kind of final thing going, okay, feel completely confident in them. Teams like Chicago, They play at Minnesota, then Detroit, and then Seattle. Like, I was kind of hoping that it might be a slightly different run into that. I'm not sure what I had in mind, but that one, it feels like those games could really go either way. They could be
Yeah,
fantastic for fantasy, or they could be really painful. Um, but yeah, Cleveland, a team who I wasn't particularly high on anyway, because the only player I wanted to draft really was Nick Chubb. And then you look at it, and it's Kansas City at Cincy, and then Miami. That just
at
it
home. Yeah,
doesn't yeah, it doesn't inspire me to get into it. I'm not, not really trying to predict the weather or anything, but it doesn't really feel like the perfect environment for them. The one that kind of stands out though is the Texans with Miami, KC, Baltimore. I think you can look at both Miami and Baltimore and expect big regressions from their defense, not to the point where they're middle of the table or even bad, but if you go 5 or 6 spots less from where they were last year, how much of a difference does that make? And if the Chiefs regress even slightly, then that could be a really just potent 3 game streak.
yeah, because it should be a lot of scoring if the defenses do regress at all, because the offenses are so good. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Like it's you look at it and I'm like, man, that's some tough defenses. But you're right. Like defense is really hard to predict year over year, whereas offense is a lot more predictable, and those are some really good offenses. So yeah, it's interesting. Could be some fun game environments. I noticed a couple Ravens jerseys in your background. I did put Zay Flowers as the thumbnail here because I saw that you were a Ravens fan. Where does your Ravens fandom come from?
So I got into the NFL 2006 when I was playing soccer for my university soccer team. And back then, you, I followed it casually for a few years, but the first team that made me take notice of what the defense was doing was the Ravens in the Ed Reed and Ray Lewis era.
Yeah,
And it was like, holy shit, this team makes concentrating on the defense fun. And when, like, I mean, I picked all this up from TV coverage and stuff like that. So it can be quite difficult getting to know the NFL. But it was like, I just want to watch this team constantly. And it was, it definitely could have worked out a lot worse because I seem to remember the other team that I was almost tempted to support was the Jets. So dodged
right.
that one.
You went the right way there. Yeah, yeah. That was definitely a fun defense those years for the Ravens. And what you get one or two Super Bowls out of it? I feel like I know they won at least one. How many Super Bowls did they get during that period?
So yeah, that's just one in that
Okay.
period. The other one was earlier than that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into a draft here if you are ready, Tom. And we can continue talking there. I'll get in the draft and then continue my questioning because you mentioned that you're the one player. Oh, where is Best Ball Mania? I totally missed it. There it is. Okay.
There we go.
Getting into Best Ball Mania. Join us now if you want to get in. I noted that you said that the one player you want to draft on the Browns is Nick Chubb, who I'm very much like out on Nick Chubb this year. Are you
Whoa, whoa.
super in on Nick Chubb, or is it just like he's somebody that you will draft if he falls past ADP kind of guy?
No, no, sorry, that was probably phrased wrongly. I
Okay.
want to draft Nick Chubb, but I'm not going to draft Nick Chubb simply
Okay.
because of the injury and because of the ADP. For me, there's 2 players that I feel, well, 3 players who I would like to draft if their prices drop significantly, and I think we'll get to them in the summer. But if Nick Chubb was down around 140, I'd be fine with that. If TJ
Sure.
Hawkinson was like in the 150 range, fine with that. And
Yeah.
Keaton Mitchell needs to be in the 180 range, that kind of area. All of those players are fun players, players I'd love to have, players I had plenty of last year, but they are just being overpriced. And we'll see it when we get to that training camp and they go on the camp up and we know for sure that they're not going to be back anytime immediately soon. I mean, obviously there's a big range with these 3 players, but yeah, that's when I'll be drafting those guys.
Wait, sorry. It was Nick Chubb, TJ Hawkins, and who was the third that you mentioned?
Keaton Mitchell.
Oh yeah, yeah. Keaton Mitchell's been the one that I occasionally will draft, but I think I'm with you. Like I'm largely just not taking those players at ADP. I agree with you also. Like I think that there might come a time when we're able to draft them a little bit later on, and at that point, sure, I'll come back to them. But for now, it's tough for me to click them where they're going. Artillery Frost says Keaton has fallen. I think has he? I
He,
haven't noticed that.
he's down about 10 spots since BBM opened.
Okay,
Yeah, I just looked that up after seeing that. But yeah, I kind of maybe 180, 189 feels kind of fair. Some on DraftKings, he's still going a little bit higher, which is where I play most of my action. And there, he's definitely too high for me.
gotcha. Yeah, I have I had one guest on who really liked Keaton Mitchell, Blake Sanders. We really like Keaton Mitchell. Nobody else has been super into it. He's not somebody that who was like high on my radar, but maybe just kind of in that RB2 range of like he might be good if he ends up getting an opportunity. Just feels a little bit buried right now for me.
Oh yeah, and that was definitely the thing. And he was such an explosive and fun player, like almost to the level of Devon Chan in a very small sample size. And that's kind of that kind of player. I think in a week 17 GPP is somebody that I'd want a small amount of exposure to, but I'm definitely not going to get carried away. But my Ravens bias will keep it around 4 to 5%, I would imagine.
Okay, that seems like a reasonable amount. We got the 101. We got the influencer 101. So I finally had the right influencer on the show with me. It was Tom who I needed all along. Are you a CMC guy at 101, or do you play it differently at all?
I mean, I think at this point you've kind of got to go CMC because he doesn't seem to be falling. You see his ADPs at 1.2. It hasn't really shifted whatsoever. And it's not because I'm massively a CMC guy, but it's just because the opportunity to get him seems to come around so few and far between. We are having a chat in our Discord today, and everybody was saying that they just felt massively that they not even not had the 101, but not even had the first third of picks.
Yeah,
So as much as I in my rankings, I have CD Lamb at the 101. I think, you can get CD Lamb at the 102, you can get CD Lamb at the 103, and I'm just more tempted to scoop that value and be
yep.
slightly more overweight on him.
All right. So I clicked CMC for us because same page as you where it's like if you're just doing one draft, I don't know that I would necessarily take CMC there. Even though he is clearly like he was in a tier by himself last year as far as running backs go. It just I'm always worried about running back health. Like I just prefer zero RB generally, but because he never falls or very rarely falls like beyond the one first or second pick, I just take him when I get the first pick because you got to get your exposure some way. So same page there.
Yeah, and before we came on, I was working on an article about like how to approach the early rounds of best ball this year, and looking at advance rates of player combos, like if you
I
went
saw
wide
that.
receiver, tight end, stuff like that. And it's so hard to look at them for running back in the first round because you just know that CMC's massive, like 35% advance rate or
Right.
whatever, is buoying the entire round when Austin Eckler was awful, Bijan Robinson was disappointing. So
Right.
I'm trying to stay open minded on it because it feels like, you know, just because last year was a great year for zero running back, it doesn't mean this year's going to be either. And I think, much as I'm not quite sure, I'm massively in on the running backs in the round two or round three yet. I just want to mix in occasional dual running back starts, and I want to be doing the odd hero RB start as well. But yeah, these draft rooms are ripe for zero RB at the minute.
Yeah. You say that you are super into the round two running backs or that you're not?
I'm not. No, I
Okay.
mean, I think, I don't dislike them, but out of the four who are going there, like Saquon Barkley's been somebody I've been fading, Jonathan Taylor I've been mixing in, and then Kyron Williams I like. I feel like he's going a little undervalued given that they added Blake Corum, but I don't feel that that necessarily has to play out the way that people are expecting. And then Devon Chan, I wanted to be out on Devon Chan because his numbers just seem primed to regress. They re-signed Raheem Mostert and then brought in Jalen Wright, but it's just kind of hard to ignore what he can do on a single
Yeah.
single game, and that is so powerful. So yeah,
Yeah, he's just he can obviously break a slate as we I mean everybody mentions that he scored 49 fantasy points in one game last year. Just absolute insanity. Hard to knock that in the second round. Um AL Paul says, someone please explain why the bias is still not been added. I believe they're being added today. They came out and said they're going to be added today. So not sure why it's taken time, but at least we
I
know that they
believe
are coming
I
soon.
believe it was an issue with the data supplier who just hadn't got around to adding them, so kind of out of their hands. But yeah, definitely
Yeah.
something that's going to be handy to have on screen.
Here's your host on the Sanctuary show, Tyler. What's up, fellas? Yeah. I'm the luck. I'm the lucky guy. Maybe you needed me and Tom together to get that 101. I
Well,
don't
that's
think
it.
I've gotten it yet.
We definitely need to arrange you coming on our stream just to make sure that I get some more 101s at some
Yeah.
point this
Yeah,
summer.
definitely happy to come on your stream also. That would be fun. I know Tyler has said that he will come back on here at some point as well. So hopefully we'll get Tyler back on maybe next week. So
And Tyler's class. Tyler's somebody that a lot of people need to go and follow. I think he's a very underrated guy and somebody I really enjoy chopping it up with week in, week out on Underdog.
yeah, I've been really enjoying the it's Tuesday, right? That you and Tyler do your stream.
Mondays.
Monday, that's right.
Yeah.
Really enjoying your streams together, really entertaining, good quality info there. So yeah, you should go check out the Fantasy Football Sanctuary, where I guess Tyler is doing the majority of his content, although he's a pretty regular guest. I know I've seen him on Bindles a few times. Obviously, hopefully we'll have him as a regular guest on here also. And hopefully this is not the last time that you will come on. I'd obviously love to have you back on the channel, Tom,
Yeah,
because I've always
absolutely.
enjoyed what you put out there. All right,
Absolutely.
Jonathan Taylor at 20. How do you feel about Jonathan Taylor at 20? I mean, it's a little bit past ADP.
I mean, I would have taken him there if he'd fallen to us. I mean, this is a wide
Yeah,
receiver heavy room, isn't it? Like, I
yeah.
think it would have been tricky to turn down, but you kind of look most of the what I would class as the round two wide receivers are gone now. So you're starting to look, okay, well, if you want to stick to a hero RB build, you're looking at the likes of Diggs, Waddle, Neighbors, Devonta Smith, Cooper Cup. It kind of gets pretty thin pretty quickly. But if we take another running back, it's going to get even thinner. So I don't know what your lean here is, Neil.
No, this is tough. This is definitely a situation of like, we might be forced into a two. I mean, we don't need to do it. We could obviously do any of these receivers, Diggs, Moore, Waddle, but the room is telling us to do two RB build. How do you want to start here? So my rankings, which are I believe the leg up rankings, have Devin Achan as the next pick, and then Diggs, Neighbors, Waddle. By ADP, it's Kyron, Achan. Who do you
I,
like in this range?
I've got a slight lean to Kyron. I think that offense is going to be really fun. And I think that the Miami passing game might be a bit better this year, if anything, which takes it away from those running backs. But yeah, that would be my main lean. And then as far as the wide receivers go, it's not overly pretty. I think the guys near the top of the ADP list are the guys that I'm less keen about in
I
general.
know.
Is
Well, we
the
don't have
one
to
that
take them. We can go down to Neighbors, Devonta Smith,
I
DK.
mean, Devonta Smith, Cooper Cup, those are the two that I lean towards. But yeah, go on, Neil. I'll let you make the final pick with 5 seconds left.
All right, let's do Cooper Cup. I like that because we have Kyron. We'll build out the sack a little bit there. Kyron with Cooper Cup.
And
Um,
I think what we're getting there is definitely going to be quite unique and different. I mean, not
exactly.
the most different, but Kyron's ADP going at 21, and then Cooper Cup goes towards the back end of round 3. So even though we've given up some draft value, we get a chance to be a little bit different and gain some leverage on the Puka drafter.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a fun start at the very least, and I agree. I think it should be a little bit unique here, taking Kyron in the Cooper Cup. I have seen a couple people have posted in my Discord in the Grade Your Draft channel where they start McCaffrey, Kyron, Devin A. Chan, which early on it felt like that was going to be super unique because like you couldn't really do that in the pre-draft best ball stuff. Like they both Kyron and Devin A. Chan went early enough that you couldn't really do that. So then people saw that it was possible and like they couldn't help themselves doing it. I'm like, I don't feel like that really is going to work that well. Starting with 3 running backs feels a little bit rich to me. What do you think? Is that something that we should have considered there, going Achan and Kyron, or do you think that's just a little bit too much to start with 3 running backs?
So I think if you're doing that, I'd be tempted to run a 3 running back build and not go even to 4. Or if I go to 4, it'd be round 16 onwards. And it would be really looking for something that felt interesting to pair with them. It's not something I've done on Underdog so far this year. DraftKings, I'm definitely kind of open to some different builds. I think like going back 2 years ago, the data supported that in 2022, which was a year Hero RB won it all there, that there was I think it was 8.6% of all teams in the 1,000 seat final were 0 RB, and 8.5 were robust RB, where you'd taken 3 running backs in the first 5 rounds.
Wow.
I did put out something on Twitter recently about robust RB working with elite tight ends. I'll see if I can find that because I think that's the way that I want to play it. If I'm taking 3 running backs quickly, then I want to lean into a different build rather than going, oh, I need to sort wide receiver out straight away. I want to take an elite tight end. So yeah, if you selected your RB3 before round 5 and your tight end 1 before round 5 last year, it had an advance rate of 17.1%, so above the 16.7%
Interesting.
average.
Yeah.
And if you stopped at 5 running backs, that was. So it seems to be that that kind of works. And in 2022 on Underdog, that had a 20.7% advance rate. I know Pat Carane's talked about how the elite tight end can supercharge these builds. So that's kind of where I'd land with it. That it's not something I'd say I definitely wouldn't do, but I'd then be going, okay, when this next pick comes back, how can I really supercharge this team and give it every chance? And then if I need to approach the wide receiver position with complete volume, then I will do. But yeah, I mean, how many is the most wide receivers you've ever put on a team on Underdog, Neil?
Ooh, probably definitely at least 10. I want it's possible I've gone 11 like once or twice, but I've definitely done 10 a few times.
Yeah, I mean, over on DraftKings, you can definitely hit 10 quite regularly. And then
Yeah.
I had a team with 11 make the finals of one of the $3 contests. So I think over there with 20 spots, it's definitely viable for those kind of builds. But yeah, I think you've really got to be willing to just forego some running back value, even if they're falling 30, 40 spots, and just go, I'm just going to keep hitting wide receiver because that's exactly what my team needs, or it's going to be dead on arrival.
Yeah. Tyler says, I think part of the advance rate with robust RB and elite tight end is partly because the mid wide receivers are flatter and contain more busts than hits by large. So maybe just more mindful wide receiver selections and roster builds. That could certainly be that it's just been like who's available in those rounds lately is largely impacting that. That is the part of what's fun about best ball is that the sample size is just so small. Like we only have a few years of data. It's basically like we have 4 slates so far. So it's really hard to make too much of it, but still fun to do the research, dig in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Underdog, we're talking 3 years data. Even FFPC, you go to their classic leagues where there's like 6 years of data. It's absolutely minute compared to the kind of the amount that we get on a regular season of DFS slates. So
Yeah,
it's definitely taking it with a pinch of salt and also going, okay, well, how do I apply that to the current landscape, which sometimes is a little easy to get lost in.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Man, I have a thought about what I want to do at the turn here, but it also I think is unlikely. Yeah, it's not available because I was hoping that we would get Trey McBride to fall back to us, build out that Rams Cardinals stack. It was kind of a long shot that he was going to get there though. He's been rising. It feels like he's going earlier and earlier. It seems like.
Yeah, it seems like the elite tight ends in general are catching a little bit of steam. Both Trey McBride, Sam Laporta feels maybe he might be coming back just down slightly, but
Yeah.
Kelsey's steam has been undeniable. And I mean, I just keep scooping Trey McBride and Mark Andrews. You know, I feel like those two are very good value at the minute.
Yep. Agreed. So I've been Sam Laporta. I could see coming back to this turn. I think that his ADP actually might rise at this point because of now that the schedule came out. I kind of wonder if people are going to try to pair him with CMC more because we got that Week 17 matchup. So maybe he rises a little bit. I don't know if that's overestimating how much of the field is doing bringbacks, but that kind of feels like could happen a bit more and more with the
Yeah,
schedule.
definitely.
All right, so we have McCaffrey, Kyron, and Cooper Cup so far. Unfortunate that the top of the board here is mostly is running backs, which we don't need right now, but we'll see what is available.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Christian Kirk, quite high on the Jags in general. Think he definitely has a good chance to really see a lot of volume this year. Keenan Allen was somebody that I think, I mean, for me, I've got him in my pure unadjusted by ADP rankings. I've got him ahead of DJ Moore. I might be a little
Wow,
spicy for this time of
that
day,
is that
but
is very spicy. Come on, that's too early to be having that kind of take here in the U.S. Should we start with Kirk, or do you want to go with an elite tight end?
let's take Kirk first, and then
Okay,
which of the elite titans do you prefer, Kincaid or Andrews? I'm kind of easy on both. I've taken more Andrews because
yeah.
but
So
I'm
I've
fine
also
with
taken a
Kincaid.
lot more Andrews. I also like to get him with Lamar Jackson, so it's often I click him. So maybe we do Kincaid because it's different. Like it's I have less exposure to it. Give Chris here a chance at Mark Andrews. I don't know. What do you think? Or should we be
Yeah,
kind to Chris or no?
no, I'm down with it. I'm like that's one of the beauties of doing these streams, taking some players, but I don't take every time, so it works for me.
Kincaid has also been rising up the ranks, so it's got to get him before he rises too much. People trying to pair him with a lot of or do we just take him? No, we didn't take him from Calvin. Okay, good. Yeah, to me, it's I have drafted a lot more Mark Andrews. I don't know that I have like a strong lean on it. I think that Mark Andrews feels safer. Like I think he's the better player, but maybe Kincaid just gets there on volume. So I think it's good to mix it up. I've been trying to mix in more Kincaid before he rises too much.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I've been mindful of lately because players like Jaden Daniels, even Ben Sonata, who I thought, you know, I have my doubts about whether they're going to pay off across the course of a whole season.
Yeah.
I just want to be in on them now before we get to July and the prices get really high and then it becomes even trickier. So, yeah, it's they're not players I feel like massively strongly that I don't want to touch, but yeah, it's worth being fairly balanced at this point in the year. And then when we get to training camp, we start getting that news and we start getting that stuff where we feel confident. That's when I'll be much more aggressive on stuff.
Yeah. Chris is immediately saying we are too kind for letting him have. He did. I'm glad that Mark Andrews made his way back to Chris. If he hadn't, then I would have regretted the pick. But since Mark, he got his guy, Mark Andrews, we'll allow it. Yes, I agree with this. Tyler, smash the like. I always should remind you, please do like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. As you can see here, I got the subscriber goal streaming across the bottom of the screen. That is one higher than it was yesterday. So picked up one subscriber yesterday. Would appreciate anybody subscribing to the channel, trying to grow it. And then Jim. So Jim says Keenan Allen over DJ Moore is one of the spiciest takes I've heard recently. That is quite the spicy take that you're giving us, Tom. What is your reasoning for liking Keenan Allen over DJ Moore?
So it's not necessarily about me thinking DJ Moore is bad on any level. I think DJ Moore is a good player. But Keenan Allen is just a volume hog. Like, last year he averaged 11.5 targets per game, which was 1.0 more than Tyreek Hill and CD Lamb, who were the next closest. And yes, he's not playing with Justin Herbert, but he's exactly the kind of player that Caleb Williams is going to need. He's going to be he's always going to be open. He's always going to be playing in areas of the draft areas of the field where it can be easier to get him the ball than I think it can be to DJ Moore or possibly even Roma Dunze. And yes, he's 32, but I'm not bothered by that at all. I think this is an offense that knew they needed a wide receiver like him. And I think what we've seen from Allen over the years has been pretty good, apart from the occasional injuries. But what we've also seen from DJ Moore is that he isn't necessarily elite at earning touchdowns. He had 4 a year until last year where he sort of hit a career high. And if I have to bet on one player, it's one of those kind of feelings where I'm like, well, I'd rather just take the slot receiver in this situation. So maybe that's my full PPR DraftKings brain that's just warping things a little too much. But yeah, I mean, I think what's happened with a lot of this is just that ADP comes out and it is how it is. And because it's very difficult for players to fall, players like DJ Moore don't fall because you have auto drafters, you have people who just take him because he's at the top of the queue. But I'd love to hear why people strongly believe DJ Moore should be taken that much higher ahead of a guy who finishes PPR wide receiver 3 in points per game last year.
Yeah, I guess that is a very good question. Like I think we have in our minds that like he's a splash play guy, right? Like DJ Moore is going to have more splash plays than Keenan Allen. I've tried to make that point before, that like splash play is not the same as spike week, which like what really you want is spike weeks in best ball. Like a single splash play, DJ Moore has a 50-yard touchdown, that's great. That maybe doesn't even outperform Keenan Allen having 10 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, something like that. So really you're shooting for those spike weeks more, and people just get too excited about the splash play. So maybe that is it. Maybe it's just a matter of we think that he has better spike week potential because he has more of those big chunk plays. I don't know. I think that I have him a little bit. To me, I haven't drafted a ton of Keenan Allen. He's maybe a guy we should have considered there. It's not that. So in my mind, it's not that Keenan Allen should be much higher than where he's going. I feel like DJ Moore is still going a little bit too early. So it's less that I think Keenan Allen's going too late. More like maybe they need to be closer together because Keenan Allen needs to push back a little bit. Or sorry, DJ Moore needs to push back a little bit from where he's going.
Yeah, and that's a massive part of it for me. I mean, if they were closer, maybe it'd be more of a conversation I'd be having with myself about it because I'd be forced to.
All right, so we are up with the next pick, and if you didn't notice, Tom, we got the note. Somebody in chat pointed out that the bye weeks loaded mid draft, so I refreshed, and sure enough, the
Perfect.
bye weeks popped up there. So that's exciting. We got them right on cue. I was going to suggest maybe Evan Ingram there. We have Dalton Kincaid, but I was thinking just for the Jacksonville stacks, since we have Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
Do you want to do Brian Thomas? Do you want to go Lad McConkey, or I'll sort by ADP here?
I
Do
mean,
you have preferences?
we could go Brian Thomas, and then I don't know if you want to take a bit of Week 17 correlation and look at. I think DeAndre Hopkins might be a little bit further down, but he's
Yeah.
definitely not outside the range of where I'd be willing to reach to.
No, definitely that makes sense for us. I was gonna say we could also continue the secondary stack with Buffalo, but I think I like the game stack idea there with the Jags in Tennessee. So let's try that.
Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence feels pretty easy to get in these drafts at the minute.
Yep.
You see him fall sometimes, so I don't feel like you go back to last year when he was going at pick 62 overall, and that's part of a wider conversation about how him, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert have all fallen, and the pocket passes in general are liked a little bit less than they were last year, apart from CJ Stroud, and the value on them feels kind of fine now. This feels like where they possibly should have been last year.
Yeah. The only problem for us right now is that the person right before us took Evan Ingram. So now it's going to come back around to us. He's going to have that first shot. Unless we take a big reach, he's going to have that first shot at Trevor Lawrence at 119, which I probably factor that in too much. I end up taking all three of them often. And a lot of the time it's because I'm like, well, if I take all three, it's very unlikely somebody else is going to take Trevor Lawrence there. Whereas, you're always at the turn, you're always in that position of like somebody else is going to have that first opportunity to get him. So it's always kind of tough with the Jag stack for me. Do you do that kind of like thinking ahead of like I want to have a better likelihood of getting the quarterback, so you end up overstacking sometimes? Do you have an issue with that sometimes?
It's something I'm trying to get better at because when I dug into the data from the last two DraftKings finals, I found that a huge chunk of the field was the maximum kind of stacks that they were going up to was QB plus one pass catcher, QB plus two pass catchers. And sometimes, yeah, I'm guilty of going to three, potentially even four. And I think while it's more efficient to end up on the skinny stacks, something that Tyler's been really on our channel, I think that the bigger stacks do open you up to the nuclear weeks and possibly even the tournament winning weeks. So I'm trying to balance it. I'm trying not to just always break the tie in favor of the stack. But I mean, stacking's always been a big part of best ball for me. It's always been a big part of my DFS approach. So, you can't change your spots that quickly.
Yeah, and Tyler and I had that conversation. So he actually came on the channel right after you guys did a talk about it, and I'm hesitant to read too much into what was in the finals, because I think that just kind of represents like what the field did more. Like I don't think that many people
Yeah.
are super stacking in general, so it's like you're not going to get as many teams with large stacks because not as many people are doing large stacks. I might be totally wrong about that, by the way. I'm kind of talking without any real data to support it. That's just kind of my hesitation without knowing more, is like that might just be a result of like a lot of people aren't even stacking at all in these contests, and even fewer people are doing large stacks, I think. But again, speaking out my ass largely.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was Neil Farley put out some data recently talking about how frequently a game stack's used, and he called game stacks as three players from both sides, and he found that basically most rosters had one sort of selection of three players from a game stack, and at the most two. It was very minimal that teams went beyond that. And so for me, when I am stacking the quarterback, I'm always going most likely up to two players, at least one, but I'm really trying hard to have a bring back. So I'm definitely in the heavier end of things like that. And I was going to say, Charles in the chat, who's mentioning my accent, it wasn't that long ago there was a Trey Lance jersey on that side of the wall. So the Trey Lance jersey takes were believable, but it did not work out well for any of us.
So don't trust Tom. He's gonna try to convince you with his accent to draft some Nick Chubb or something, and you can't trust him. All right, so we are coming back around. I don't see any like obvious must-haves. I mean, we could throw Tony Pollard onto the stack with DeAndre Hopkins potentially. Here, I'll sort by ADP here. Um,
Yeah, I I mean, Curtis Samuel gives a little bit more Buffalo correlation, perhaps. He's somebody who I do like and I've taken a decent amount of. But other than that, David and Joker, I don't feel the need for with what we've got. Yeah, it'd be Tony
Yeah.
Pollard or Curtis Samuel for me, whichever of the two of them you'd prefer, Neil.
Let's I mean we could do both. Or do you have somebody else you have in mind? Do you want to do Brock Purdy with Chris McCaffrey or anything like that?
So we are right upon ADP. I guess if we took Brock Purdy, then it would allow us to be a bit more free about whether Trevor Lawrence comes back. So I don't mind that, unless there's anyone you really feel strongly about.
I don't feel really strongly about anybody. I could go either way, Curtis Samuel or Brock
Let's
Purdy.
let's go Curtis Samuel.
All
When
right.
has leaning wide receiver heavy ever worked out badly for anyone?
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to think like I don't love just stacking quarterback with a running back. Now, Christian McCaffrey could be kind of an exception there because he does so much of his volume through the air. So maybe he's the one exception where it would be okay for me to just do Brock Purdy with Christian McCaffrey. But I was trying to think through like, oh, are we going to be able to get who is it? It's not Jermaine. They just added Pearsall. Pearsall, like he
Yeah.
kind of would have lined up for us at 144, so could have taken that shot. But no, I think going with Curtis Samuel probably the prudent decision there.
Yeah, and Tommy in your chat mentions any thought about Sutton there to have an out with Nick Slater. It's a good shout. It's not something that crossed my mind, but it's definitely the sort of thing that possibly should have popped in.
I do like Cortland Sutton there.
Have you
I've
been
also
taking much Bonix?
I really like Bonix. I think that he is a really strong late pick because I think he's going to start from the get go. He does run a little bit. Um, See, I'm in, but I feel like I'm more theoretically in than like actually in that like I haven't actually drafted him that much, which is I think I have a tendency because I'm so over focused on stacking. I usually get my stacks out earlier, so I end up doing like the early quarterbacks probably more than I should. I'm trying to be more like mindful of that this year of my biases of just like gives me anxiety to not have my stacks completed, so I try to stack them early, and I'm trying to like push it back a little bit more like okay because I do like theoretically I'm very much in on Bonix. How
I,
about you? Are you in on Bonix this year?
I, I'm I'm definitely trying to be a little bit more in on Bonix. I think he's not somebody that I'm consistently taking, but I think there's definitely a path there to him being at least paying off ADP value. But I think what you're saying about like trying to get your stacks done earlier makes total sense because otherwise you end up looking for the last girl at the dance and having to basically either take the Broncos stack, the Patriots stack, or try and shoehorn something else in because even the
Steelers,
Panthers,
yeah.
I mean, even the Panthers, most of your good assets are gone by that point. The Steelers, you're looking at like a Roman Wilson late stack, and it doesn't feel incredible when you're just looking for basically what like 6 catches a game from one of Russell Wilson
And you
or
don't even know who the
Justin
quarterback
Fields.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I was in a draft earlier today on the Rotoviz channel, and we saw somebody take Justin Fields and Russell Wilson back to back as their third and fourth quarterbacks. That's not something I'm ever going to be doing. I think, I'll play like I'm right with the quarterbacks, and then I'll take pieces of those offenses and try to correlate them. So even though the fact that the Steelers have like a really difficult schedule to end the season with Philly, Baltimore, Kansas City, I'll look for little correlations like that rather than worrying about going which Steelers quarterback is going to be playing. Because even if it's Justin Fields in week 17, I'm not sure I have much faith that coming off a prolonged period of rest, he's suddenly going to be excellent going up against three teams
The
that were pretty
Chiefs.
good. Yeah.
That is so. I've said it before, and I don't know that I've done it. I have thought about doing the double Steelers quarterback thing. I've seen it done once where somebody had them as the third and fourth quarterbacks. I'm like, if you're gonna do four quarterbacks, I guess those are that is the one scenario where I would consider. I don't think I've ever actually drafted four quarterbacks. I'd be more inclined to do it if I had like an early quarterback and then like do those pair right at the end. I'd consider it, but yeah, not something that I would advise doing very often. But I will say that is the one quarterback room where I'm like, I kind of think about doing it because I sort of think that whichever one of them is the starter is going too late. Like they're both like would be going much earlier if we knew they were the starter. So I've thought about doing that double quarterback room, but it does not feel good. And I think you make a good point that like there's no guarantee that Justin Fields is the Justin Fields that we know and love when he does take over, if he does take over.
If you could get Justin Fields guaranteed from week 10 to week 17, how high would you draft him?
Probably like 120, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, that's kind of the range. Very much of it kind of comes to mind for me. It's where the question marks start coming in, but you'd be like, okay, I can carry this, I can get by till that kind of range. But yeah,
Yeah, that's tough. Oh, Brock Purdy's still on the board here is
and
interesting.
Trevor Lawrence, we could double tap quarterback
We could.
and be done with it if Trevor Lawrence makes it to us. I've just realized I've said that seconds too early with our
Damn it,
guy with
Tom.
Evan Ingram.
I don't know if Kelvin watches these streams. I feel like I recognize the username, so maybe he's been in one other draft with me, but I don't know if he watches these streams with. I do have another thought though. So we have some outs here. Okay, so he goes Brock. Oh, he goes Brock Purdy. All right, I was that was not what I was expecting. So I think we just go Trevor Lawrence here. I was going to say the other option here would be Josh Palmer and Justin Herbert. Could do that
Yeah,
double tap. What's your
I
preference? I mean,
think
we already have two Jacksonville guys. What's your preference?
I think we've kind of built. We've got the Jacksonville, Tennessee thing as well. So I'm kind of.
Good point. Yeah.
I'd lean towards that, and then we can leave that game alone.
So we are at one quarterback, three running backs, five receivers, and one tight end. Um, I do like Josh Palmer in this range. I could also go one of these running backs. What do you think? Or preferences?
Not really, to be honest. I'm not an Austin Eckler guy. I
Me
think I
neither.
would. Yeah, I'd rather Gus Edwards or Jacoby Myers, to be honest.
All right, let's see here. Let's go Gus, and then because I do like some of the later the receivers that I think might be available on the next turn.
Yeah.
It's kind of the
So with our running back room of CMC, Kyron, Tony Pollard, and Gus, do you think we're done? Do you feel like we need to take a fifth one at some point, or would you be happy sticking at four at any point?
we could be done. I'd be more comfortable taking five in general. I think that I've been more and more leaning towards like taking five or six running backs as opposed to four. I was drafting a ton of four running back rooms a couple of years ago, and then just like learned the hard way that like running backs get hurt so often that even when you think you're set, you end up with weeks taking zeros. Which we're drafting like we're right, so maybe that's the wrong approach. But I'm more inclined to take a fifth one here. But how do you feel? Are you okay just leaving it at four?
Not really. No, I'm trying to get back into the mindset of doing hyper fragile teams at certain points because you go back to where this all started with Underdog, and that's what won everything for Justin Herzig. But it was a much smaller field, and he relied on being like the only person in a 50-team field with Alvin Kamara scoring 6 touchdowns to win. So I'm not sure it's the most sticky. I think whereas you look at kind of advance rates and bits like that, if you go four running backs and take your RB4 before round 11, you're talking about below negative advance rates. But you add a fifth running back on there and settle at a five running back build, and all of a sudden you're back in the green. And
Okay.
whilst I don't stick to these kind of things rigidly, I think when we're talking about a 3-year sample, that's pretty sticky. You're talking, a couple of 100,000 teams which have been doing this by this point. So there's a large number of teams it's worked for. So yeah, I think for me, you can park running back and come back to it sort of round 15 onwards. But yeah, it definitely Gus Edwards doesn't feel quite safe enough, and perhaps even Tony Pollard isn't quite safe
Yeah,
enough to
right. It's
call a
not the
really.
safest for four elite. I mean, we have great running backs with we have CMC Kyron. Like we're going to be great, but yeah, it's not the safest running back room as far as four you could have taken by that point. So I go back and forth on like whether it's even worth it to mess around with weird constructions too much. Like you brought up the idea of like if you take those three running backs in the first three rounds, should you just stick to those three? And I don't think I would. Like I think that I'm more like it's not worth it to do hyper fragile in general. Chris says hyper fragile may be old theory. I don't really see the benefit to it. Like you don't gain anything by only taking three running backs. I mean, except for obviously you get an additional wide receiver or something else. So you benefit from that theoretically. So like I understand it in theory, but like I don't know. It feels to me like a lever that's like sort of unnecessary to pull. I'm glad that you actually you dive into the numbers. So for me, it's just like I think about it like theoretically, I don't see the huge advantage, and I listen to people talk about it all the time, like all these different. Like, I'm just going to try just one quarterback or just one tight end, and I don't think the math supports doing that kind of thing. From what I've heard, it seems like you want to give yourself more combinations, different ways that it could work out for you. So I'm always hesitant to do super hyper fragile like the three running back room. I'll still do the four running back from time to time, but do you think you're going to be doing much three running back drafting? I know that you are like you've dug into this data a lot more than I have, so you have some stronger takes, I'm sure. But just kind of my theoretically, I don't see the huge benefit to go in with super weird constructions.
I think once you start talking about super weird constructions, three running backs to one tight end, one QB, one tight end builds, you're always talking about outliers, aren't you? So you're always hoping that you can sneak a team into the playoffs, and then by having the one QB and the one tight end or the three perfect running backs, that you can then build a super team around it. And that's always an incredibly fragile theory. Because of that, it's not something I'm ever dying to do. I think, like, I'll mix them in. It's like something falls right. Like a couple of years ago, I seem to remember you at one point you could start Travis Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson if you were on the turn.
Yeah,
And then it's like, right, well, I'm done at the onesie position. I have, in theory, what should be an absolute super team. And in practice, the teams didn't perform very well. They didn't go anywhere. And, part of that was because Lamar was injured that year or whatever. All those kind of bits that don't really contribute. But it's like, I mean, we do a lot of drafts, Neil, don't we? So I
right.
think there's
You're just trying
definitely
to make stuff up. Yeah,
there's definitely a point where you're like, okay, I'd like to try something different. I'd like to see how weird this can be and still feel good about it. But on the whole, you just want to lean into, okay, are my player takes good? Is my roster construction knowledge better than some of the people in here? And
yep.
do I know better ways to correlate? And I think if you do that, even if you are wrong on your player takes, and I mean, I was wrong on plenty last year, you can
Me
still
too.
advance at above average rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so it sounds like we are largely like on the same page there. It's not something that you want to be forcing too often. That maybe we do it as you sort of suggest. Maybe we do it more out of boredom because we do so many drafts. Like let's experiment a little. Let's try a three running back room. Um,
Yeah.
all right.
So
Do you have thoughts here on what we should be doing?
Matthew Stafford kind of stands out at the quarterback position. He doesn't
Oh
have the
yeah,
same bye week as the Jags, which is helpful. So that one would be one I'd be
yep. No, that's a
kind of
good call
pounding
out.
the
I
table.
was yeah, yep for sure. That's the right call there. We could
Um,
still do Ricky Pearsall or do you like any of these tight ends?
Not really the tight ends so much. I prefer kind of the next tier of them. Running backs, I quite like Ty Chandler, and then wide receiver wise, I don't mind the guys in this range, but I'm happy for you if you've got a strong opinion on anyone. Ricky Pearsall feels fine to me as well.
Yeah, so I was hoping that either Jermaine Burton or Dontavian Wicks would be here. I saw the same person took two of them, so took both of them. So they're not available here. So do you prefer Ty Chandler over Rico Dowdle? Is that what I'm hearing?
I would prefer Ty Chandler, but not to the point where I'm strongly banging the table for it. Like I've taken quite a bit of Ty Chandler, and it's definitely at the point where I'm starting to think maybe I need to just ease back slightly and diverse.
So is that based on his talent? Do you think Aaron Jones is maybe a little bit fragile, or what's your reasoning for Ty Chandler in particular?
Yeah, it's just a little bit of both of those things. Thinking Aaron Jones is very fragile. When Ty Chandler finally got a run last year, he was pretty good. And just thinking that that offense could be slightly better under JJ McCarthy than perhaps people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, that's definitely could be better. I hope that you're right. As a Vikings fan, I hope that you're right. It's better offense than we're anticipating. He's been often. I get a lot of Ty Chandler just because he falls frequently and like he's often. I just find him like, oh, there's my top ranked RB. But I'm like, man, Aaron Jones is. I think Aaron Jones is really good. So I'm like hopeful that Aaron Jones is just dominant. So I guess I'm leaning into that a little bit more.
So have you been drafting a lot of Aaron Jones?
No, so yeah, I say I've been hoping that he's going to be dominant, and still like yeah, I'm not drafting a ton there. I feel like that's like so he to me Aaron Jones is like the start of that running back like huge running back tier for me. So I just like play the ADP game of like okay, I'll end up with a lot more Gus Edwards, Devin Singletary, Chase Brown, like the guys who end up at the end of what I consider to be a very long running backs here. How about you? Have you been drafting much Aaron Jones?
I've been drafting him a bit. I've said that he's a player that I don't want to end up at 15% Aaron Jones, but I'd be quite happy ending up at 10%. And just, when you're talking 300 drafts, that's enough to create a little bit of leverage on the field. And he's a player that I don't want to miss out on because he finished last season so strong when everybody thought he was completely dust because of the injuries at that point. So, yeah, it's betting on running backs after age 28 is not something that we really want to go too crazy on, but kind of 10% feels fine.
Yeah, no, I think I'd be happy to get there with Aaron Jones. I've drafted some. He hasn't been like a huge focus for me recently. I think I got a good amount in the pre-draft stuff, but recently he's just been like kind of in that range where I'm usually not going running back yet. So I haven't drafted a ton, but I think that he's a solid pick where he's going. Um, I saw that Nick is in chat. Nick, who is King Koss, who took the two wide receivers that I wanted. Read my mind is why he took my wide receivers from me. Thanks a lot for that. A lot of people in here in the draft with us, so I haven't even acknowledged we have um, King of Quality Control. I think it's probably King of Quebec, but I call him King of Quality Control. I assume he's somewhere in our chat because he has been in several of my drafts. I see Chris is here, Snatch Cashers. Of course, Nick is here. King Koss, Alex Keaton frequently in the chat. I don't think I've seen him in the chat today, but he's usually streaming with us. So a lot of familiars. And anybody else in here drafting with us that I don't immediately see? Are you anybody else drafting with us?
Plenty of smart drafters by the
Oh,
looks
Queen
of
City.
it.
King of QC says Queen City. I'm going to stick with Quality Control because I think that's funnier. But no, he shows up in the chat. Thanks for hanging out. King of Queen City. Where is Queen City? I don't think I'm familiar with Queen City.
I mean, every draft room needs a king of quality control, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do that work. So, do you think we're done at quarterback? So, our team right now, I'll read it off. We have Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford at quarterback. At running back, we have Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, Tony Pollard, Gus Edwards, Ty Chandler. At wide receiver, we have Cooper Kupp, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Curtis Samuel. And at tight end, we have Dalton Kincaid. So I think my read of this is that we could be done at running back if we wanted to. Quarterback, we could be done, or we could add a third. Wide receiver, we definitely need to strengthen up a little bit. And then obviously we need at least one more tight end. Do you have any disagreement there?
No, absolutely. I think quarterback, if anything falls to us and it feels good, then we can take it. But we definitely don't necessarily need it in terms of the rest of the board. Agree, running back can be largely done. Wide receiver, we're probably looking for like 3 to 4 and at least one tight end, possibly two, depending on how late we wait to take them. I have been kind of living in this area of the draft for tight ends for the second and third tight ends. I think, Juwan Johnson, K. Dotton are both kind of fine. I think Noah Fan is somebody I've been drafting quite a lot of. I don't feel like we need to worry too much about that just yet. But in terms of wide receiver, I can't bring myself to click Adam Thielen.
Me neither. It's so tough.
It just he almost taught us a lesson last year, but we all escaped and got away with it. But yeah, otherwise,
I'm tempted to take Juwan Johnson here.
Yeah, Juwan Johnson works for me.
If you prefer Kate Otten, I also have not clicked that name very often, so maybe. But
K. Dotton, no, I mean, I was just checking that there's nothing in the way of correlations. Yeah, I mean, neither of them give us anything extra. I'd go Juwan Johnson. I think how he finished the season last year was really impressive. I think he was tight end 1 on week 17 in the end. So kind of hoping that carries over.
And then these wide receivers that you like here? Here's by ADP.
I mean, I've been taking Rashad Bateman. I saw Matt Harmon tweeting about him earlier today. And
he's not going to make it back to us. So I say we just bite. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm trying not to get too carried away on Rashad Bateman, but when you're talking about the clear wide receiver 2 on an offense that we expect to be good, yes, there's Mark Andrews, yes, there's Isaiah Likely, but I'll take that in round 15.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. You just shouldn't fool me twice.
Fool me 3 or 4 times, and yeah.
Charlotte is the Queen City. Did not know that. Okay. Sean says Tom is a great Twitter follow. Cool to see him on the show. Yeah, Tom is a great Twitter follow. A lot of great info Go follow Tom at NFL underscore T Strack on Twitter. Strack with a K there.
Appreciate both you and Sean.
I believe so. So I think the reason that I knew that you had kids, Tom, is I vaguely remember you posting a picture of yourself on a roller coaster. That's the only reason that I'm like I knew that you have kids. Is I swear you posted a picture of yourself on a roller coaster at some point. Is that correct? Or you seem doubting it. You seem doubtful. So maybe I just made this whole thing up.
It's possible. Not any time recently. Might have been a little while back, but yeah, I mean, I don't mind posting my kids on social media. Normally, when they've done something stupid or deserve a bit of a laughter at them.
Okay, so maybe you posted your kids, and that's why I knew. But I swear there was a picture of you on a roller coaster at some point. But I guess I just completely made that up.
I mean, it's possible, but definitely not in the last year or so.
Okay.
Um,
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you. So you said that you went to the Underdog headquarters. Is that in Arizona or where is that?
no, so that's in Brooklyn. So spent a
Oh,
few
fun.
days out there with them. It was fantastic. I mean, they are just absolutely every bit the company you would hope they would be. The vibe there is exactly as you would expect it to be. All really super professional, excellent people, but just a massive emphasis on good vibes and good times and hanging out with a bunch of those people and hearing about like the story of how they got started and how they developed certain things and then brought more people on. It's impossible not to root for them as a company. Like I just even when I can't get into the drafts, I'll always be doing everything I can to help them.
Yeah, you're still a big fan, even though they're not offering you to play where you are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've mentioned it once or 5,000 times on Twitter, but I don't want to get to the point where they start ignoring me.
yeah. You don't want to nag them too much, where they're just like, all right, we're gonna mute this guy. Probably smart.
That's it. All I'm doing is solidifying my place. But one day, when Underdog does go international, I'm going to earn a lot of referral codes over here in the
Yeah.
UK. That's
Oh,
for
no
sure.
doubt. I have no doubt about that. Man, that'll be a beautiful day. I assume it's
But
gonna happen at some point, right? Like it can't be too far off, I would think.
I don't know. I mean, I know they were pretty concentrated on sorting the sports book out. I know that for DraftKings, having the sports book allowed them to be international a bit easier. But also, Jeremy Levine, the head of Underdog, has talked about how his simple mission is to be the best platform for American customers. And it's definitely true. The way Europeans gamble compared to Americans is different. It's also true that we have a much more degenerative history with gambling, and it's been much more commonplace for a long time. So, I think what would be a big game changer is if they came up with best ball for the Premier League, there would be
Oh
no
yeah.
way you could keep Europe out of it. I think it would go
No.
absolutely nuclear.
Are you a big soccer guy also?
I used to be, but
You said you played
over
in college, right?
yeah, and then over time when I had kids, it's just harder to watch all that stuff when you've got two girls who demand the TV remote. And
Yeah.
as I got more into the content streets and more into the NFL, more of my focus through the weekend just went through to all the minute details that people like you and me pour over extensively. And now I'm solely a one sport person, and this takes up everything that I have.
Okay. So who was your team previously?
So I supported a team called Preston North End, who are in the second division.
Okay.
But yeah, living up in Newcastle, I've been to plenty of games up here at the stadium and some good times. But it's not a sport that I find anywhere near as entertaining as the NFL.
I bet that is a hot take in England, I would assume.
It's growing fast over here. I mean, if you want
Yeah.
tickets to the London games, you could be sitting in a queue of maybe 500,000 people trying to get tickets, and they sell out within minutes. It's definitely much bigger now than it was sort of 20 years ago when I got into it.
Yeah. So I have a thought about what we could do here, but I also don't want to say it before our turn comes up
Smart, smart, smart.
because all of these people, actually I don't know if Kelvin is in chat with us, but everybody um might be listening and might not affect it anyway. Actually, at this point, uh the pick that I am thinking about wouldn't make sense for Kelvin anyway. Um
I
that
get where
being,
you're going.
yeah. I figured you probably would have an idea of what I'm thinking. I've done enough of these drafts that I'm really hesitant to share my thoughts before the pick. We could add Will Levis to this quarterback room.
Yeah, I think, if we wanted to, we could go Will Levis and Chigakonkwo, take
Oh
that Tennessee
yes.
stack, really build out a week 17 kind of monster with Jacksonville stuff. And now all of a sudden we're done at quarterback, we're done at tight end, and we can just go wide receiver dart throws for the rest of the draft.
Well, we only have one more pick after this, so let's just before I make this pick, and
Good
I'm
show.
leaning this way, but are we happy with this wide receiver room? If we add one more to this wide receiver room, are we gonna be happy with that?
I think that's fine, yeah. And then what, 7 wide receivers there? Yeah, I mean the quality we've got at the top feels pretty good to me. And
Yeah.
now having that Tennessee stack, so we've got through the playoffs, you've got Jacksonville, who've got the Jets at Las Vegas, and then Tennessee. But we've also got the Titans, who have the Bengals, who were pretty poor against the pass last year, the Colts, who were pretty poor at times, and then at Jacksonville. So I think adding that to the Matthew Stafford stack, I really like it.
Yeah, no, that is a strong team we're building out here, I think. Um, yeah, it's like the wide receiver, our wide receiver room is like sort of on the lighter end of where I want to be, but also I didn't see any great wide receivers coming up that I really wanted to click. So I think Chig makes sense for that little stack there. We also, we have the running back there with Tony Pollard. We got DeAndre Hopkins. Now we had Chig. That's kind of a fun little stack that we kind of did last minute. So I think our wide receiver room a little bit lighter than I would like it to be for wide receivers.
Yeah.
But also like Cooper Cup clearly has wide receiver one upside. Christian Kirk, I think, is a solid wide receiver too. We get a little bit thin with Brian Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins being our third and fourth receivers, but we are betting on those offenses anyway. Curtis Samuel, I think, probably a fine wide receiver 5. Rashad Bateman, sort of a weak wide receiver 6. Even though I'm in on him just like you are, but hopefully we add one more. I think it's going to look okay. It's going to be a little bit light at wide receiver, but we're very very strong everywhere else. I think so. It could work. It could play.
Yeah, I like it. And one thing Hayden Wings has talked about is that getting those first 4 wide receivers in the first 7 rounds is much more important than what you do with wide receiver room after that point. So I'm kind of more open to trying to ease back a little bit on wide receiver. I'm still always going to prioritize them in the first third of the draft, but
Yeah.
yeah, not going too crazy sometimes is something I'm trying to get better at.
Yeah. This is insulting. Charles says we look like the Kansas City. He's right. He's not wrong. It does kind of. It's not the strongest wide receiver room. Hopefully, we're better than the Kansas City wide receiver. Hopefully, it's more like this year's Chiefs wide receiver room, which I think is at least more promising.
Yeah, we just got to stay out of jail.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Demarcus Robinson wouldn't have been a bad pick for us, I suppose, if he had. But I guess he went a little bit ahead of ADP here, so. If he had come back to us, maybe I would have taken him. If we had added Demarcus Robinson, might have made sense for us over Chigakonkwo if he had been there, but he was gone. So nothing we can do about that.
Yeah, he's somebody who's kind of really flown up. Like I think it was like April 20th, like about what 2.5 weeks ago, he was down undrafted, and then all of a sudden, all it takes is a little bit of steam from people like you or me or those with bigger followings.
Winky Christ in this case, the underdog NBA guy, tweeted out about how he was so good at the end of last year. At least he's the one that I credit for me being like, oh yeah, he's right. I should draft this guy.
And then all of a sudden, 20 spot rise, and now you're seeing him being taken in the 16th round. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it makes complete sense. I think that when you're talking about a team that their philosophy is to play 3 wide receiver sets constantly and barely rotate them, why would you not want a player on an offense like that?
Yeah, especially after what he did at the end of last year. This is ANS Comedy said, loving all these streams, Neil. How are you thinking about combinatronics? I hear you talking about them a while back, and I'd love to hear more about it. Yeah, so for me, it's sort of tough in the early stages of the draft, where as we talk about, like you do, like if you reach too far early in the draft, it can be hard to you're giving up projection at certain points in the draft. But we were talking about it early in this draft. Like we got a little bit of a unique combinatorial team just by taking Cooper Kupp here at the turn. Cooper Kupp with Christian McCaffrey, they're not going to be together all that often in these drafts because they don't line up in terms of ADP, Cooper Cup generally going to be a later third round selection. We take him at the very beginning of the third round, so you're not going to see that very often with Christian McCaffrey. And I don't think that this is a spot where we really did give up too much in projection. Like we maybe gave up a little bit of, I don't know if we gave up safety, but just reaching a little bit for somebody who I consider to be kind of in the same tier as the other wide receivers in that range. That's a spot where we can, gain a little bit of a combinatorial edge without giving up projection. That's generally the goal. Do you have thoughts on, taking a combinatorial owner angle here to our picks, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always a balance of going, okay, if I'm going to make a reach like this to try and find something a bit different, I'm not going to carry on reaching. It's going to be, and there will be a point where at some point I want to be scooping some value. And I think as long as you do that, then it kind of works and it's okay. Who are you thinking with our last pick here, Neil?
So I only starred Treylon Brooks as we have the quarterback, but I'd be happy to take DJ Chark, Rondell Moore, Jalen Hyatt, OBJ. Do you have a preference here?
I quite like Jalen Hyatt. I think, everybody's just assuming that the Giants are going to be.
I don't know if I got him. We'll find out if I got Jalen Hyatt there.
Everyone's kind of assuming,
all right,
yes, that the Giants are going to be absolutely terrible. And I'm not saying that they're going to be great by any means. But I think Jalen Hyatt is a player who, if they get him more into the slot and they play him similar in the way that he played at Tennessee, then there's a bigger range of outcomes for him than there possibly was last year when they had 37 different slot receivers playing ahead of him. So, yeah, I quite like taking shots on him this late.
I agree. He's a strong late round selection. Definitely has the splash play potential. Could have some big games this year, and especially if the offense is better than we expect, yeah, it might be a really great late round selection. Good afternoon, Felix. I saw Felix was just on your channel recently, right?
Yeah, a really fun stream. Felix is great. Love drafting with him.
Yeah, Felix, always fun to do drafts with Felix. We didn't even mention Najee Harris. Usually you have to mention Najee Harris for Felix to show up, but he came today without us even mentioning him. Artillery says, the way I think about it, talking about combinatronics, if you don't want to draft someone that lines up with your next pick at ADP, then go for, yeah, I mean, it's sort of a, like, I don't have a set like way to approach combinatorial ownership. It's more just like when my pick comes along, if I can think about it, if I can get somebody who I don't think I'm really giving it, like if they're kind of in the same tier and I think one player is going to be owned commonly with this other player and I don't have like a strong correlation reason for it, then I'll just take the pick that I think is going to be less common with my picks. Where I really think, and Tom, do you have any experience with like weekly winners on Underdog?
No, I don't. It's format we're going to dive into in the next couple of weeks, but it's not something I've played at all.
Okay, yeah, I played it last year, really loved it. Lost money on it, but like it was one of those things, like from a like top 1% perspective, I think I did really well last year. But from a actually making money, like it is like you really have to win or you're going to lose money on it. So did not make money on it, but really did enjoy it last year. But that's where I think that combinatorial ownership is just like massive. Just not drafting the same way everybody else drafts, you can get a big edge, especially in the early rounds.
Yeah, and I think like I'm always more willing to do it on the turns because it's so easy to just fall into the trap of drafting the same guys at the turns. And yes, last year it was Amon-Ra and CD Lamb, which went nuts and did so great for everyone who had it. But that doesn't mean that I want to take it every time that I end up in the 11 over 12 pick or the 1 over 2. I want to get different there simply because if I'm going to do 300-400 drafts this year, then I'm going to get bored. I'm going to want to do some different combinations.
And also, so Jim, who I had on the stream last night, he actually won a tournament last year, and it was partially, if I'm remembering correctly, was partially because he actually didn't do that combo. So even though the CD and Amon-Ra worked out really well, he took Devontae Adams at that turn instead over one of them, and it ended up being like 10 points better in that final round. So like actually got a big edge by not just doing the same thing as everybody else there. So yeah, it's I think about it when you get into weekly winners, maybe that is where I'm really focused on combinatorial ownership. All right, let's read off these teams, then we'll jump into another draft. We'll read off teams, and then you can decide if you have the energy for another draft, Tom. Obviously, I'd love to have you stick around. We will start with our team, though. So we get Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford, Will Levis at quarterback. At running back, we have Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, Tony Pollard, Gus Edwards, Ty Chandler. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Curtis Samuel, Rashad Bateman, Jalen Hyatt, and at tight end, Dalton Kincaid, Jawan Johnson, Chigakonkwo. How you feeling about this team, Tom?
I think it's a fun team. I think in hindsight, if we knew that Levis and Chig had fallen to us, maybe we could have stopped at two tight ends and used that extra pick
Yeah.
on wide receiver. But yeah, outside of that, I feel really strong about it.
Yeah, I think like it is. I think we're strong at every position other than wide receiver. We went a little bit light on wide receiver, but at the same time, this is a wide receiver room that could play if health is good. I think these are all wide receivers that have some upside here. So I think it's a solid enough team. I feel like it's a plus EV team. The king of Queen City goes Jaden Daniels, Tua Tagovailoa, and Geno Smith at quarterback. At running back, it's Saquon, Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, Kendry Miller, Tyler Algier, CEH. At wide receiver, he has CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, Darnell Mooney, Javon Baker. And at tight end, he has Jake Ferguson and Jonnu Smith. So he has the nice Miami correlation with Jonnu Smith and Jalen Waddle. He has the Washington correlation with Terry McLaurin only. And then he added the Geno with Tyler Lockett. So he has, some three different quarterbacks all stacked up pretty nicely. Exciting quarterback room. Looks like the quarterback's definitely strong enough. Wide running backs to me looks like a strong enough running back room. Gets Austin Eckler to fall to pick 123, which is probably about where I'm interested in Austin Eckler. I think Kendry Miller, pretty good running back. Four strong wide receivers. Yeah, I think this is a good team. Do you have
Yeah,
any?
it's really nice. No, there's nothing that kind of stands out as good or nothing that stands out as bad at all with it. I'd be pretty pleased if I drafted that. I think whenever you can take three quarterbacks who are on different bye weeks, it just gives you that extra kind of nice feeling of security that
Yeah.
even if you end up going down to two through injuries, you're still going to survive the bye weeks. So yeah, fun team. Definitely taking Josh Jacobs. I think he's still going a little bit undervalued and getting him 8 picks past ADP. I like that.
Yeah, it's a strong team, really well correlated. Nicely done there. Chris in here has Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert at quarterback. At running back, he has Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, James Conner, Rico Dowdle, Antonio Gibson. Wide receiver, he has Jay Jets, Debo Samuel, Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey, Josh Palmer, Demario Douglas, Devontae Walker, Noah Brown. And then at tight end, he has Mark Andrews, Dalton Schultz, Tucker Kraft. So as far as correlation, he has Lamar with Tez Walker and Mark Andrews. That's strong. Quarterback, he has Justin Herbert fell all the way to pick 141 for him, along with Lad McConkey and Josh Palmer. That is really, really strong team, in my opinion. I really like it. How do you feel about this, Tom?
Yeah, maybe Tucker Kraft might have been the one I wouldn't have taken. I do like Tucker Kraft. Think he's got a real chance if he can get back on the training field soon to possibly even surpass Luke Musgrave. But I think, yeah, Mark Andrews and Dalton Schultz, I would have probably stopped but the reason he's done it, of course, is because they've both got the same bye week. So
Yep.
ignore me. I missed that first time around.
Yeah, that's a good call. I missed that also. And he also has Tucker Kraft there with J Jet. So he has the week 17 correlation Vikings Packers. I'm just realizing that he added on. So he has the Baltimore stack, adds on the Houston Noah Brown at the end. So he is looking like he's trying to correlate week 17, which I did not. And then who do the Chargers play? I don't remember who they play in week 17.
The Chargers play New England.
So he's got Antonio Gibson there from New England. So he's definitely playing, and Pop Douglas. So definitely playing the week 17 correlations as well. So yeah, my initial thought was Tucker Kraft, not necessarily there, but you're right. It makes sense on this team. Fill in that bye week, has nice bye week separation there. Yeah, really, really strong team there for Chris. Who else in here? Oh, we had Nick in here also, just stealing all of my players. I'm gonna like this team because every pick he took was like, damn it, Nick is sniping me. He gets Caleb Williams and Bryce Young at quarterback. At running back, he has Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Brooks, Chase Brown, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Tyrone Tracy. Wide receiver, Nico Collins, Devontae Smith, Keenan Allen, Jordan Addison, Keon Coleman, Dontavian Wicks, Jermaine Burton, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen McMillan. A lot of rookie wide receivers there. Trey McBride and Cole Kmet are his tight ends. So he has Caleb with Keenan Allen. He was just trying to take all of our favorites, I think, Tom. Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet. And then he gets Bryce Young with Jonathan Brooks. just Jonathan Brooks. So I don't love that. The stack only with the running back is not typically something they do say they're going to try and use him in the passing game. So not the end of the world, but that's not my favorite correlation there. But from a bucket standpoint, I think Caleb Williams and Bryce Young is, I think it's probably good enough. What do you think that's a good enough quarterback room, Tom?
I think it's possibly a smidge thin for me. I think whenever I take Bryce Young, I kind of feel like I have to add a third quarterback, not because I think he's not going to start games, but I just think that that offense, although I expect it to take a step forward, might not be potent enough that we're getting great scores from him at times. So, yeah, I just possibly lean towards adding a third late, I think. But, if you're taking Bryce Young as your second QB at pick 199, you've probably been boxed out of things already
Yeah,
quite a bit.
I think that seems pretty likely here. It could work out. I think it could work out if Caleb is, what he's billed to be. Running back room looks totally strong enough to me, in part because I love Jaleel McLaughlin as they are before. He was the one that I don't know. Do you have a strong Jaleel McLaughlin? How are you feeling about that? Are you as high on him as I am, or am I just getting ahead of myself with my Jaleel McLaughlin love?
I mean, I'd rather Jaleel McLaughlin at pick 162 over where Javonte Williams goes every day of the week. So,
Yeah.
I think out of the two, I'll have much more Jaleel than I will Javonte.
Okay, same page there. Definitely looks like strong enough wide receivers to me. Really, a lot of wide receivers. Is that 10? Nine wide receivers there, and I think some really strong ones,
Fun.
and strong enough at tight end. Yeah. Alex also drafting with us goes Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson. He has Brees Hall, Tyjae Spears, Marshawn Lloyd, Khalil Herbert, Dylan Lobby, Audric Estime at wide receiver. He has Chris Olave, Stephon Diggs, Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy, Calvin Ridley, Deontay Johnson, Rashi Rice, Jerry Judy, and at tight end he has Brock Bowers and Tyler Conklin. So he has Rodgers with Tyler Conklin and Brees Hall, which I think is fine for me. And then Deshaun Watson with Jerry Judy. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, it
Looks like a
feels
strong
pretty
enough team.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think those two quarterbacks, that kind of pick 150 to 160 range, that's the last kind of area where I'd be willing to do that.
to do
But I
two
think
quarterbacks only.
Yeah, but I think when you're talking about those two, there's such a clear thesis of the idea, okay, if these two hit enough for me to win a tournament, then they're both going to be playing well above the question marks that are hanging around them. And if that happens, then you can survive with the two quarterback build.
Yep. So that looks good enough. And do we have anybody else drafting with us? That's it for people that drafted with us. All right, Tom. So now it is up to you. Do you have the energy for one more draft?
I'm going to have to bounce. I've got an
Okay.
early morning tomorrow, but this has been a lot of fun. So we definitely need to do this again at some point in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I would love that. Really appreciate you jumping on a stream with me, Tom. This was a ton of fun. Thank you for hanging out with us in the chat. I am going to stick around and do one more draft. So if anybody in chat wants to do the draft with me, join me. But Tom, this has been a lot of fun. I will send you to bed. Thanks for where can people find you? Where is your stuff? Promote your stuff a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, on Twitter at NFL_T_Strack, pretty much constant churn of shit posting, best ball data, best ball articles, or
Everything we
best ball
want.
streams. Or on YouTube, you can find us at the Fantasy Sanctuary. Subscribe over there. Mondays, Underdog shows, Wednesdays, DraftKings shows, best ball strategy videos, which are all cooking away and in the works for the next few weeks. It's a busy time of year for us.
Very nice. Yeah, go check out Tom's stuff. Puts out a lot of great content and great stuff on Twitter. Thank you very much, Tom, for hanging out. And yeah, come back soon.
Cheers, Neil. Appreciate you. Have a good one.
Thanks, Tom. You too. All right. So we are going to jump into another draft right away. So if you guys want to do another draft with me, gonna jump in here. Best Ball Mania. Let's go. Bye weeks loaded. Looks like this one is almost full already. So if you want in, get in now. Now it's time for me to go check if I have softball tonight. We are at risk of softball cancellation, so I got to go check the schedule here while we're waiting for the draft. All right, looks like this filled. I get the 2 pick. This is a nice day for me getting the early picks. So it was me all along. It wasn't Tom. It was me who gets the early pick luck. All right, where is this? No, just get it. But this is I feel like I haven't gotten a ton of early picks in these drafts. So very fun to get two in one day. Oh, my games tonight canceled. No softball for Neil tonight. Sad, sad night. No, it's not that sad. What is sad is that I have softball next Tuesday and the Timberwolves are playing next Tuesday. So I'm going to try to convince my entire softball team to just cancel the game. Just say, we're out. We're not playing on a night when the Timberwolves are playing. I'm going to go CD Lamb here. Because, like, I'd rather watch. I love softball, but I think I'd rather just watch the Timberwolves than play softball. This is Western Conference Finals. We can't be playing softball when there's a game going on. Am loving the schedule for the conference championship games in general. Was pretty rough. The Denver series, often games are starting 9:30 here, just super late. Now they're all like 7:30. It's great. All right. Chris, yeah, I just drafted. Tom and I just drafted the BBM winner. So yeah, definitely could be drafted in May. King Coast acknowledging that, yeah, a little bit. It could work out though with Caleb and Bryce Young. Like I can see the thesis of that working out. Jim says that I am correct that he took Devonte Adams over. Don't remember if it was CD or Amon Ra, but that was the difference last year for Jim taking down a tournament. And as Mad Sox notes, yeah, uh, going a little bit different definitely makes some sense. Again, I think earlier in the draft you're giving up more projection by being different, but that doesn't mean you can't, here and there, just tweak one thing. Take somebody like take Drake London at pick 11. You're going to be a little bit different there. Small little reaches early on can make a big difference on combinatorial ownership. Brees Hall falls to 9. So the king of Queen City gets Brees Hall. Does anybody who has been on one of my streams already want to jump on the channel, do this draft with me? You already know I've got the 2-hole. If you feel like jumping on and finishing the stream for the next 40 minutes, I'll be here. I can send you a link if anybody wants to jump on last second. I know not everybody, it's not that easy for everybody to just like jump on a stream at the last second, but if you happen to be in a place where you can set up quickly, come hang, come do a draft. I don't know if Bindles and Tyler are still here. Felix still in his, yeah. Jim could come back on. Just had Jim on last night. Marvin Harrison down to 16. So Wandering Penny had the opportunity to do the Puka Marvin Harrison thing, passed on it. This is, I feel like I like Drake London slightly better than Marvin Harrison, maybe. I think I'd take Marvin Harrison ahead of him generally just because of ADP. But here is where I would probably, just because it's been kind of hard to get Puka with Marvin Harrison. And I probably would have done it there just for that week 17 kind of fun stacking. Obviously, that's just, you know, small difference, not a huge thing if you prefer Drake London. But that's something that I know Tyler was saying. He was trying to get that the Puka Marvin Harrison thing. It's been tough to do. I haven't really been trying that hard. But might have taken him there just for the week 17 correlation. These drafts go so much slower when I don't have somebody to talk to while I'm doing it. It always feels like once you start the conversation, you're always like interrupting it with the picks and they come so quickly. But then when you're by yourself, you're not interrupting anything. Suddenly it feels like it's an eternity between picks. Maybe it's also because I'm on the turn. So it is a lot longer between picks here. Felix, I'll think about taking Najee Harris in this one since you are here. I've drafted a bit of Najee on my like non-stream drafts. I've been drafting a good amount of Najee lately. All right, so I have CD Lamb. Who do I want here? Could just go Nico. Yeah, maybe I'll just go Nico here. Seems like a strong enough pick. That is a, yeah, if I wanted to worry about combinatorial ownership, that was a spot where I could have just easily gone to Malik Neighbors. Not a huge difference, I think, in terms of projection there. I'm going to continue to go zero RB here. I'm going to do Diggs. Just get the correlation game going. I do think that this is getting for a while. It was tough to get this combo. I think that it's gotten a lot easier lately. So I think that I'm probably gonna stop doing the Nico Collins Stefon Diggs thing in the short term when I realize that you can do it whenever you want. But right now it still feels a little bit rare to me because I kept trying to do it a few weeks back and couldn't do it. So right now I'm still doing it. Uh, King of QC says, how long have you been streaming? It's my first one I'm catching. I've been a month or so. I think since BBM 5 came out, I'm trying to stream all 150 of my BBM 5 drafts. I have a podcast that I do also, so I've been doing that one prior. But for the most part, I've been doing a lot more streams since BBM 5 came out, since I'm trying to get all 150 of them streamed. So a lot recently. And thank you for joining, King of QC. I know you've been in at least one of my drafts that I have drafted. I remember the name King QC because I was calling you the King of Quality Control. So you were in at least one of the drafts that I streamed earlier. But if you want to catch more of them, please do subscribe to the channel. Trying to grow it, so would appreciate it. And of course, join the Discord also, which is in the description of this video. If you're interested in joining another Discord, we talk a lot of best ball and other stuff there. So feel free to join the Flannelverse Discord in the description of the video if you're interested. Kind of a fun start. Dallas, Houston. Kind of interesting at the turn there now. Who's going to be available at this? I don't want to say too much about that now, but kind of becomes an interesting turn there. I have thoughts about who I want at the next turn, all of whom might be gone before I get there. I don't believe you, Felix. Only 90% Najee? I doubt it. That's funny. Definitely have a lot more Jalen Warren than Najee, but again, I think it's largely a coin flip for me. Don't have a strong take on one of them over the other. It's just typically Jalen Warren falls further. You don't see Najee falling to pick 100 like ever. You do see Jalen Warren fall in there sometimes. So I kind of let ADP decide for me a lot of the time. Little run on quarterbacks here. Mahomes, Hurts, Allen going pretty early. And Allen going the third of that group is not something you see very often. Makes sense in this case because Devonta Smith goes to Wandering Penny. Then he adds Jalen Hurts. And of course, we get Kelsey and Mahomes. So they all make sense, but not very often that you see Josh Allen fall to pick number 40. Nice little ADP scoop there for Queen City. Uh-oh. I did not see this, Jim. Jim says Kyron has a foot issue and isn't participating in the off-season program. Who's ready for Quorum to rise? Yeah, I mean, got to start jumping on Quorum apparently because that's was not aware of that. Had not heard that. All right, Mike Vick takes Tank Dell. He was one that I was kind of hoping was going to fall to me. Did not happen, but that's all right. Probably not actually the right approach to do all three. I'm always tempted to do it anyway. And Lamar goes. I don't love that. Hate to do it to you, Zedglin. I don't think I'm sending him back to you, though. Let's see. Yeah. So I was hoping that Lamar would still be available there. I would take Mark Andrews, and then I'd have my pick of the quarterbacks to come back to me. And at that point, it's kind of a toss up for me when I have both of these Houston guys. Who do I want between Stroud and Lamar? Um, I still think I don't know who I would have taken there. But I know that I wanted Mark Andrews there for the bring back on the Houston stack. So that works out okay for me. Then I do Stroud. So now I got the double stack with the bring back all worked out here. The Houston CJ Stroud with Nico, Stephon Diggs, and then Mark Andrews on the bring back. That feels pretty good to me. Yeah, again, if Tank Dell had fallen to me here, I would have had a decision to make. Do I want Tank Dell there? But I like that. I think that worked out pretty well with that little group there. As much as I hate to do it to the guy who takes Lamar there. Yeah, I think this is a fair concern. Go AZ card says, I don't know how I feel about double tapping wide receivers on the same team in the first 3 rounds. It's probably not the correct move. I can't help myself. Get my stack out of the way early. Could work out. We're just betting on that offense being incredible, and those two being the guys there, but probably not something I actually want to do very often. It feels fun to click, and also feels like it's probably unlikely to actually work out. So I think that is a fair concern. I agree with you, Felix. I don't have any issue taking Warren and Najee together. I don't know that I've actually done it, even though I'm very open to the idea. Yeah, King of QC, you're definitely getting. Who do you have so far? So you get Brees Hall at 9. Yep, that was good value. Yeah, you really did. You're getting some great. I think Cooper Kupp right on line with his value, but all three of Hall, Harrison, and Josh Allen falling a little bit past ADP there for Queen City. So that's got to feel good. Also, like that's another thing with combinatorial ownership. Sometimes you just get there by like taking the falling value. So like sometimes it is especially early in drafts. Like if you take the falling value and you've taken everybody else at ADP, you're getting a little bit of a combinatorial distinction on the field there just by taking the falling value. So I think he's doing a good job of just getting a unique combo because the players keep falling to him. Artillery says timeshare backs seem fine to take on the same team, but I would not take a clear 1 and 2 on the same team. I'm deciding if I agree with you. Like Brees Hall and Abanikanda, I'm probably not doing. I think I largely agree with you. Like I don't think I've done it a ton. I don't think I'd have a huge issue taking like Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler. Wouldn't be my favorite though. So I think I'm mostly in agreement. I don't want to make a hard and fast rule that I 100% agree with that, but I think that I am largely in agreement with you that I'm not taking both if there is a clear 1 and 2. Like I don't think I'm taking Bijan and Tyler Algier because the only way Tyler Algier hits is if Bijan gets hurt or something. So I think that I do probably agree with you. If it is a clear 1 and 2, I'm not taking the 2 very often. If I have the 1. Yep, good call. Buffalo and the Jets. You get, yeah, that's fun. Yeah, it's working out well for you. QC. All right, coming back to me. What do you think? If you did what I did, let's say Lamar Jackson doesn't go here and he's available to me at 50. Who would you rather have? If you have both of Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, and you also have Mark Andrews, do you just take Lamar Jackson because he has the better projection than CJ Stroud, or in that case, do you lean into the double stack and take CJ Stroud? That was the conundrum that I thought was going to be coming to me, and I'm sure it's going to happen at some point in these drafts. So I'm curious what people think is the correct quarterback pick if both are available when you have Andrews, Diggs, and Collins. I think we're all going to be forced with that decision at some point. Those of us who are doing a lot of drafting, that's going to be something that comes up at some point. and I don't know what is correct. I think I lean Nico Collins just because. Okay, yeah, King of QC says Lamar for the rushing upside. I agree with that, but also because I took both of those receivers in the first 2 rounds, or first 3 rounds, I'm making such a huge bet that they are going to be good. So I don't know. It's a tough call for me. All right, so here's where I could reach a little bit. I don't think I should do it though. I've got 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback. Do I go Lad here? I'm gonna go Lad. I thought about reaching to do a Dallas stack, but because I already have my primary stack, I don't think I need to be reaching to get another stack right away. All right, he goes Ridley and Montgomery. Could get my first running back here with Ramondre. Maybe I'll do that. Dallas plays Philadelphia. All right. I think that works out. Probably not my best turn. Maybe there are some more correlations I could have thought through if I had the week 17 memorized, week 16 memorized. Yes, Charles says Hill, Waddle, Chase Higgins, Brown, Smith didn't work out. Didn't Brown and Smith sort of work out a couple years back though? Like not last year, but the year before. I feel like it like at least came. I think it could work out, but yeah, it's a little bit rich in the first 3 rounds. I think if you push it a little bit, it could work out a little bit better. How much ADP value do you need to take a falling quarterback you won't be able to stack, like say a Mahomes? Well, I mean, you can always find a back stack, but for someone like Mahomes, like if all of Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelsey, Hollywood, and Rashi Rice are all gone, it would be probably the 6th round for me is where I would take Mahomes. Like if all those guys go early for some reason, like Tua, if Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle are both gone, and Tua falls to pick 140, I'm still probably not touching Tua at that point. It would be maybe if he falls into like the 150 160 kind of range, I would do it. If Jonu's still there, then I'd say like all right, I can do it. But basically it'd be pretty rare for me to take a quarterback if I don't have at least some backstacking option, with some exception. Like if it were like a Lamar Jackson falling to pick 70 and I don't have, but again, you can always throw on just like less viable receiving options later on. So really for me, it doesn't come down to I'm going to take this quarterback unstacked so much as I guess I'll throw on a back stack. Obviously, in the 18th round, I have done it a couple times. I think just taking an unstacked quarterback, but quite a bit for me. If I'm not going to be able to stack with somebody I want, it takes quite a bit for me to want to take a falling quarterback. Jones and Chandler are priced like they are a timeshare and a backup, so it's strange. But yeah, if it's an expensive running back and a cheap one, I don't like them. Yeah, I think I would largely agree with that. Benjamin, what's going on? Yeah, artillery. See, that's kind of what I was leaning. Probably Stroud there, just because I spent so much on the wide receivers. Benjamin says Lad over Brian Thomas Jr. makes no sense. It's just the opportunity. Like it's just I think Lad has a much better chance to be the wide receiver 1 on his team. Honestly, it's a toss up for me though. I don't feel strongly about Lad over Brian Thomas Jr. I'm more inclined to take Brian Thomas Jr. there if I already have Christian Kirk, or if I'm trying to build out that Jacksonville stack, and I've taken a lot of him. So Lad is just kind of like I have more Brian Thomas Jr. I don't see a huge difference between them personally. All right, Tennessee, no. Let's go by ADP here. I don't see any great stacks here. We'll go Tony Pollard. Try to remember who the Chargers play in Week 17. Shout it out if you remember in chat. Oh, they play New England. Huh. All right. I was thinking about I might do it anyway. I might do Brock Bowers here. Close out the tight end room. I also like Trey Benson as a third running back. Could have worked there. So I have Ramondre and Ladd, so a little bit of correlation there. I got to figure. I got to memorize the week 16, week 17 correlations a little bit better because I feel like there could have been some tiebreakers there for me. Let's see. Somebody tweeted out. Oh yeah, I was looking at David, and I retweeted today. David, and it's so small I can't read it. Vegas plays New Orleans. Okay. Did not have that one memorized for sure. The leg up mnemonic. I have not looked at the leg up mnemonic, so that is maybe I'll have to use that to try and memorize. I thought it was a joke. I saw a kind of a joking mnemonic from leg up that was to me not something that was going to be helpful to me, but maybe they posted a serious one since then. I'm liking this team so far. Not sure if Brock Bowers was the right choice there. Trey Benson would have been a good spot for him also. I did play the little quiz game that Howley posted in here yesterday, or that people were talking about yesterday in chat. Played a little bit and got pretty good at that last night. So have some of them, sort of almost memorized at this point. But I think I got good at it because I, in that short time frame, could remember real quickly, and now I'm kind of forgetting some of them. Just heard some thunder, so good thing my softball's canceled. I don't see anything too crazy going on in this room. As King of QC, are you continuing to get all these great values? You get Breece Hall, Marvin Harrison, Cooper Kupp, Josh Allen, James Cook, part of that Josh Allen stack, Xavier Worthy, Kyler Murray to go with Marvin Harrison, like that. DeAndre Hopkins, Cortland Sutton. Yeah, that team's working out well for you, QC. Gus Edwards, like that pick for a third running back. Anybody else in here? I guess I don't think anybody else who's drafting with us is in chat. I recognize some of these names, but I don't think anybody else is in chat. Let's see. Artillery says, well, mnemonics being jokes actually is what you want because you just want them to tie the key value pairs in your brain. Yeah, I guess some of them to me were just like things that weren't going to help me personally, but maybe help other people. I did enjoy the little quiz. I don't think anybody's posted it in my Discord, Lundar. I can post that later if you want the link to the quiz game. I don't. Maybe somebody posted it. I don't remember it. But yeah, I can post that there. Something being stupid helps you. I mean, that is true. I think you are right. I just, for whatever reason, I thought it was a joke when they posted it. when everybody was rushing out to get their little charts out there, little mnemonics and stuff. All right, so I have one quarterback so far. Ooh, I do like Rashid Shaheed. I mean, he's right at ADP here. I'm going to do that. Ooh, am I? Or do I want to take Chase Brown? Yeah, I'm going to go Chase Brown. I see a bigger teardrop there than the wide receivers because there's a few wide receivers that I like here. Also, Blake Corum there. I do like Blake Corum. Yeah. I see 3 different receivers that I want here. All right, Jacoby Myers was one of those 3. I do have Brock Bowers, so I thought maybe I could throw him on there, but I'll just take Shaheed here. I think that he could have a blow up spot this year just because I think he could be a full-time player this year, which he hasn't really been historically. I think he's kind of starting to be last year. Could take another step forward this year. So I like Shaheed where he's going. That's smart, Benjamin. You write them down every day. You're not going to forget those. You're going to get them quicker. Yeah, Lundar, I can go find that. Here, let me go. Let me go find that now. Little quiz for memorizing week 17. See if I know how to navigate Discord. Mentions. Not going to take me that long. Here, wait, here we go. No. It's a Quizlet from Tommy Howley. I will. First, I'm going to paste it into chat on YouTube. And then I'll also post it into the Discord. There you go. There's your little quiz for memorizing week 17. Lundar just posted into YouTube chat. And there are a few different ways that you can play. You can do the matching game, which I thought was pretty fun. There you go, from Tommy Howley. I'll go post it in my Discord also, so that we don't lose it. There you go. I just posted it in the Best Ball channel in the Flannelverse Discord if you're interested. No, don't worry. Don't worry about me messing up my draft. I got plenty of time before my next pick. The one thing that I did not figure out in the short time I was playing it, so I was doing the quiz where it was like you get like 8 pairings or something like that, but it was not every week 17 game. So I might need to go see if there's a way to do it with, because that's what I really like to do is play with all week 17. I think I got it in 14 and a half seconds, the matching game, but again, it was not every matchup, so I don't know if I played the full version. Only played it a few times. It is I feel like it took me most of the year last year to learn week 17 because I wasn't paying much attention to it. I feel like this year I'm going to have week 17 and week 16 like memorized within the next month. I think I'll have both of those memorized pretty well, because I'm getting more into the correlating for the playoffs this year. Although all the sheets and stuff that are coming are mostly focused on week 17. I reposted some schedule things that I thought were helpful on Twitter today. There are some that do week 16 also. All right. Wicks and Ford go. Could take Josh Downs. I think I have not taken a lot of Josh Downs. I think he's probably a good pick here, right? Yeah, I'm going with Josh Downs. I know Jim was into it. Made a case for him. Probably somebody I need more of in my portfolio. I don't have a ton of Josh Downs, so I think he's a good pick there. Haven't taken nearly as much Anthony Richardson this year, even after he was really great in the games he played last year. I probably should be taking more than I have. And then I'm going to go Marshawn Lloyd here, I think. Yeah, I'll go Marshawn Lloyd. One thing I realize is I think of that last turn, I had the opportunity to do Josh Palmer, Justin Herbert. Would have made sense since I already had Ladd. Could have finished out my quarterback room there, but I think I've done that plenty with that 3-man combo of Ladd, Josh Palmer, Herbert. Pretty easy to do a lot of the time. Feels good, but can't do it every time. Yeah, this is one I haven't tried doing that. Brodoggy says, been trying to grab A Rich when I go neighbors, but have to reach around to make it work so far. That's interesting. Yeah, I'll probably start trying to do that at some point. Jets play Rams week 17 and Bills week 17. That makes sense. Doing the multiple different matchups throughout. I like that. Artillery Frost says Josh Downs and Jaden Reed's price differences make no sense to me. They're both in crowded rooms and had similar stats, with the exception of Reed having more touchdowns, but touchdowns are less sticky. Yeah, I think Jaden Reed goes a little bit too early personally because I'm not convinced that he is the Packers wide receiver one. So I'm with you on that. I mean it's just a better offense, so I understand Jaden Reed. I think should be going earlier than Josh Downs. But yeah, I think there is the difference probably greater than it should be. Those, if I'm being honest with you, not two wide receivers that I think of like very similarly. But I do think you're probably right that Jaden Reed going a little bit too early. Maybe Josh Downs going a little bit too late. So maybe they should be a little bit closer than they are. But I think the difference is like there is no world in which Josh Downs is the wide receiver one unless Michael Pittman gets hurt. Like I think that there is clear pecking order there. Like Josh Downs is just not going to supplant Michael Pittman as a wide receiver one, whereas Jaden Reed has the potential at least to be the Packers wide receiver one, also a better offense. So I think it makes sense for Jaden Reed to be going ahead of Josh Downs. But yeah, probably not by quite as much as they are. Wait, how much ADP value do you need to pick an unstackable quarterback falling to you? So I think we already talked about this a little while ago. Quite a bit for me. If it's an unstackable quarterback, it would be quite a bit of volume. The exception being like if my quarterback room is weak and Justin Fields falls to me in round 17, I don't have anybody from Pittsburgh. I'll make an exception there. I'll take Justin Fields. You're taking him largely for his rushing upside anyway. But in general, not that interested in unstackable quarterbacks. Artillery Frost says, I can test the Packers offense being better. The rest of the Colts offense has a much higher price than the Packers. True. You do have Jonathan Taylor going in round 2, Michael Pittman going in round 3. I would guess if we took a look at like implied team totals for this season, I would guess the Packers is a bit higher than the Colts, but I have not double checked that. Hmm. Now, what do I want to do here? All right. Malachi Corley. Haven't taken a ton of Corley. I think that he has upside in that Jets offense. Could be the wide receiver 2 there. Checking to make sure that Namba Juice doesn't have it. And I guess we're at the wrong turn for him to have Garrett Wilson. Just want to make sure it doesn't make a ton of sense for him to go with what I'm trying to do, which is get that Aaron Rodgers Malachi Corley stack a little bit past ADP. We get 20 picks of value on Aaron Rodgers there, Malachi Corley right at ADP. So that feels good since I was kind of unsure what to do with my quarterback. I was thinking I could have done like Juwan Johnson, Derek Carr, but I already had 2 tight ends. So I kind of think that I can now close out my quarterback room with CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a perfectly fine quarterback room. So yeah, I like that, the way that worked out for me. Kind of lucked into a second stack. Yeah, I mean, ADPs also like reflect certainty in the role. So like I think that Pittman, as you know, Pittman being the wide receiver 1, yeah, it is just sometimes there's a clearer cut role also. So like the strength of the offense isn't necessarily always reflected in ADPs. I mean, we have Malik Neighbors going mid third round or early to mid third round, and we're not really expecting the Giants to be great. There are exceptions where it's just like the opportunity for the player, the role on the team is not going to be necessarily reflective of the offense. This is probably true, Chris, as I think the running back ADPs from rounds 8 to 10 play a part in pushing Josh Downs down a bit. Yeah, I think there's kind of like a tier gap that's broken up by a long string of running backs, so that probably makes the gap a little bit bigger than it seems. Whether it's correct, I don't know. All right, so King of QC got the. Oh man, you got Josh Allen and Kyler Murray already. I was thinking that you're trying to add a back stack here because you're drafting some late stacks now, but probably don't need to be drafting any more quarterbacks with Kyler and Josh Allen. That's a fun team. Fun team shaking out for the King of Queen City. Yeah, Downs is probably is a solid value. Definitely, that's a Jim was making the case for Downs yesterday. Somebody that I had not been drafting a ton of, but I'm gonna try to work in a little bit more. I think I forget that Anthony Richardson actually, he's a good deep ball threat. Probably the offense is going to be better than I expect because he was out last year for most of the year. All right, I'm feeling good about this team. I really think that these two falling where they did, Rogers falling to 170, kind of fell into place for me on a team that didn't have a lot of backstacking options other than I could have done Derek Carr because I had Shaheed, but like I don't feel great about taking Gardner Minshew. I would feel better if I knew for sure he was starting all year. Maybe he is. Maybe they didn't draft any great quarterback, right? So we probably Gardner Minshew. Like, what are the odds he starts all year? If he is starting all year, I think that I need to start throwing him back in. I was drafting him in the pre-draft stuff a little bit after he went to Las Vegas because I feel like he could be like wheels up if he is the starting quarterback as a 17th, 18th round pick. Gardner Minshew has been, pretty good, and he has great options in Brock Bowers, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. So maybe that's quarterback blind spot for me right now because I was concerned that they were going to be drafting a quarterback. I still think they could trade for somebody, sign somebody. I don't know, but right now it feels like it's probably going to be Gardner Minshew's team. So maybe that's something I need to be starting to draft. Have you guys been drafting Gardner Minshew? Yeah, but King of Quality Control is funnier. So go back and forth on what we should be calling him. All right, back on the clock. Only have 4 running backs so far. I do kind of like Khalil Herbert, just as a might be traded to a better situation. Basically, anywhere he goes is going to be a better situation for him. So I do like Khalil Herbert going in the late rounds, making that bet that he's going to be traded. I think Roshan Johnson also probably makes sense as a result. But I think with Herbert being the more likely to be traded, I think I actually prefer him over Roshan Johnson because there's better possibility that he gets traded into like an actual good role where he is a starter, whereas Roshan is just going to be, taking that clear RB2 role in that scenario. Let's see. Pretty good at wide receiver, I think. Good at tight end. Could take Eli Mitchell, I suppose. Yeah. I don't see any running backs that I feel strongly about here. So I guess I'll just do it. Evan Hull, I think, is solid. I've taken him in the last round a few times recently, but I don't feel great about the last round running backs right now. Like, kind of right now, I like the Khalil Herbert, probably the last running back that I feel pretty good drafting. Actually, Deontay Foreman, kind of in that tier also, of just like I can see a path to them having a lot of upside. Whereas a lot of these guys, it's like I guess estimate if I've struck out on Jaleel McLaughlin, maybe I go estimate sometimes. I don't know. I don't feel great like about any of the last round running backs, so I end up just kind of mixing and matching, not taking any huge stands there. I think this makes sense, Chris. Yeah, I've been doing it with Bo Nix mostly as my last round bailout, but I think Gardner Minshew feels almost as safe, about the same. Agree with this. Yeah, Bo Nix. It's a great bailout option right at the end. Yeah, I'm not doing the CEH thing. I maybe have drafted him once. Maybe I'll do it time to time. I'm not a huge CEH believer. I'll leave him to Davis Maddock. I suppose if he is the RB2 on the Chiefs, then maybe it's a blind spot for me. Maybe I need to be doing it a little bit more. It just seems like he's had his opportunities. They've never worked out. I don't know. It's tough. Tough to make a case for him. One final pick here. All right, so I'm sitting at, I'll read off my team. CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, probably good at quarterback. At running back, I have Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard, Chase Brown, Marshawn Lloyd, Khalil Herbert, Elijah Mitchell, probably good at running back. Wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Lad McConkey, Rashid Shaheed, Josh Downs, Malachi Corley, and then a tight end, Mark Andrews, Brock Bowers. Honestly, I think this is kind of a luxury pick. I feel like I'm in a like all the positions feel about equal to me. So see who makes sense when it gets to be my turn. If Derek Carr falls to me, I'll consider it since I have Rashid Shaheed. Don't think I need another quarterback though. Suppose I could throw on like Noah Brown, add him onto the stack. Is there a great late round Jets receiver? Not a lot of confidence in Alan Lazard. No, nobody that I'd love to add here at the end. Yeah, this is not an obvious pick to me. Sometimes it just falls together where you know exactly who you want. Yeah, I agree, Chris. Denver is a team that you can easily backstack late. Denver, New England, super easy to do, really late. The Giants also. Everybody but neighbors goes pretty late for the Giants, and it's all a big discombobulated mess there anyway. So like, just take your pick of receivers. All right, so I could go. I guess I'll star Derek Carr for now. I don't think there was anybody else that I really wanted to take. So I'm going to do it. I feel like I don't need a third quarterback on this team. Maybe I should have gone receiver there. I don't love any of these receivers. I could have gone Hyatt again, I guess. Tom talked about liking Hyatt. I do like Hyatt as a last round pick. So that could have been an option. But getting Derek Carr 20 picks past ADP when I'm correlated, I don't know. I don't know if I should be taking a third quarterback on this team when I already have CJ Stroud, but here's how it ends up. CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr at quarterback, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard, Chase Brown, Marshawn Lloyd, Khalil Herbert, Eli Mitchell at running back. At wide receiver, we have CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Lad McConkey, Rashid Shaheed, Josh Downs, Malachi Corley, and at tight end, Mark Andrews and Brock Bowers. I think it's a fine team. I think really enjoyed the early part of it. I think it worked out. Getting the CJ Stroud double stack with Mark Andrews out of the way early was kind of fun. Really lucked out getting Aaron Rodgers, Malachi Corley to fall to me. I don't think it's like my best draft ever. I don't think I needed Derek Carr on a CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers team. Maybe I should have gone Jalen Hyatt or something, or taken one more dart throw at wide receiver with some upside. But ultimately, I think it's a fine draft. I think that I have very strong at quarterback, decent enough at running back. It's not the strongest running back room, but I like this top three. I think they all have like running back, you know, viable running back top option upside. Some dart throws on Lloyd, Herbert, Mitchell, I think are fine. Strong wide receivers, strong tight ends. So not my worst draft, not my best draft. I think I'm okay. Was Tez Walker gone? Was he? I don't know. Let's see. I assume he was. Yeah, he went at 195. So he was gone by the time of that last pick. Otherwise, would have made sense. I do have Mark Andrews as the bring back. Yeah, I think I feel good about that wide receiver room. Could have gone a little bit more, but feels good. Okay, here I'm catching. Oh man, there were more in the chat than I thought. Why is Evan Silva the guest? I'm trying to think of what the joke is there. Who does Evan Silva love? I forget. Really, Brownlee. Is he getting some? Is he gonna be? Is he gonna be better than Malachi Corley, or is he like the wide receiver 3 for the Jets? I don't know. He's not a name that I've thought about at all. Artillery thinks I should have considered Eric All, but isn't he still recovering from the ACL? I think that's kind of the reason I have not been drafting Eric All is that he's still recovering. But maybe I guess if you already have tight ends, maybe he's like he'll be good in the second half of the year. I don't know. I haven't drafted Eric All, but maybe something to consider. Clint is right. I probably should have gone Jalen Hyatt or some other wide receiver instead of a third quarterback in that room. I think that was the wrong decision. Trying to see who you're talking about. Chiefs. Chris said if the Chiefs don't grab a running back in the offseason, CEH will jump 3 to 4 rounds. Get him now while he's cheap. Okay, so that's what Jim's responding to, saying I'm not sure about that. They also had Jerick McKinnon last year, and I don't think they have Jerick McKinnon this year, so he might be a little bit better. Oh yeah, as they finished the conversation without me. I'm just jumping in here to a conversation that's already been had. Um, yeah, I'm sure my wife would draft a great team with a few pointers on how best. I mean, I tell her about best ball enough. She might already know how it works well enough to draft a team. Um, yeah, I don't think she's interested in coming on a stream though. All right, this was a lot of fun. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with me throughout this draft. I thought it went second draft went okay. I thought the draft with Tom went pretty well. It was really fun having Tom on the stream. Sounds like he'd be open to coming back on another stream tomorrow. Going to be doing I want to say 2 Central, 3 Eastern. Going to have Megan Shoop on the channel. That should be a fun draft also. So hopefully you'll come join us for some more Best Ball Mania, doing a couple more drafts. Should be a good time. As always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and join the Discord. We're trying to trying to grow the Discord. Still fairly new, trying to get it more active. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Catch you next time.